Recording. It's Monday, June 2nd at 2:02. This is a meeting of the Infrastructure Task Force for June the 2nd, 2025. So if we could call the roll, please, and then we have something we need to take care of.
Mr. Angeli?
Here.
Mr. Barnett? Mr. Browski? Mr. Labrie?
Here.
Ms. Redstow? Here. Mr. Walters?
Here.
Ms. White? Mr. Zeldman? Ms. Thompson?
Here,
And
so to
Chair
speak.
Chair Party. You have a
Okay,
quorum.
so we have, here, present, sorry. So we have a quorum. Now, Ralph is attending virtually. I'm told we need to vote as a quorum to allow him to participate, but virtually. So can I have a motion to that effect, Roosevelt?
I move that we allow Mr. Zeldman to participate virtually.
I second.
Motion, we have a second. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Now, just to get this out of the way, I'm also informed that although Ralph can participate, he is unable to vote if there is anything that needs a vote. So I'll just leave it there at that. So the next item is approval of the agenda. Do we have, Samila, do we have somebody here that's going to talk on
They are supposed to be here, it doesn't appear that they are here.
Yeah. All right, so I'm not going to move the agenda around then for somebody that's. Okay, so I need a motion to approve the agenda as written.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion second. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
The next item is approval of the previous meeting minutes. Can I get a motion to introduce the minutes, please?
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the minutes with correction.
Second, that's been moved and second. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Make corrections.
Yeah, well, I guess I'm coming to that, right? Any additions, corrections, etc.?
Yes. Under general discussion on page 6, 5 lines from the top, 3 lines from the bottom, it's got June 2nd as being a date and time for the conference to meet and by the commission. And June the 2nd is not correct, that's June the 3rd, because today is June the 2nd and the conference meeting is on Tuesday.
Good catch. So that's page 6
Yeah.
at the bottom. At the very bottom. And that needs to get changed from June the 2nd
To June the 3rd.
to June the 3rd.
Just point of information, it's not on the agenda for tomorrow.
No, I was going to come to that.
Okay.
You're talking about the specific
Hazen, sorry.
thing that was raised
Right, Hazen, sorry.
under that.
Yeah.
Yes. So that actually brings me to a question for Roosevelt before we actually formally approve the minutes. There's a couple of things here in the minutes. I don't want to change or anything, I just wanted to give further information on. Should we vote on the minutes? This is not a change, this is just like exactly like that came up there, following up
Okay.
on
Yeah.
something that was
So
said
it's all-
in the minutes.
It's all done prior to,
Prior to the approval,
yes.
if I want to bring something up.
Yes, on the
Okay.
minutes. On the
Well,
minutes.
they don't affect the minutes, but it's information subsequent to the minutes. Make sense? Something that's happened after the minutes. So should I
Then
bring that up
Then-
after
then
the
the-
minutes are approved, or?
the proper place was be all the way down to,
Comments.
Member
five.
comments, member
Yeah,
comments?
all the way down to 5.
That was my question.
Okay.
Alright, so I'll do that there then. So now we've had one change. Any further changes or additions? If not, all those in favour of the minutes with that addition, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Me. So we're on to agenda item 2. old business, ongoing discussion of the ITF. Hopefully you received the little email I wrote to Samala, which you circulated to you, which said what happened when I went in front of the City Commission, or they discussed our request to hold a meeting with them. Long story short, to summarise, they basically said, we don't need a meeting, we agree that the infrastructure task force should be set up as a permanent board, and they instructed the city attorney to prepare a draft for creating us as a board, and if that happens, then all terms of office reset. It's not automatic that you would be appointed to the board, but you wouldn't be excluded because you were term limited out on the task force, right?
Mr. Chair, just for everybody else, I don't know how many of you were there at the meeting, but I was there, and I would just like to say our chair did an excellent job of representing us
Thank you.
and was able to answer every question that was brought on by the commission, and I appreciate it.
Yes.
Thank you. And they did, it should be noted, towards the beginning of their discussion, they basically thanked us for our work, and they seemed to be very appreciative to what we've done over the years. So it was nice to have that recognition, James.
I was at the committee meeting as well, the commission meeting as well, and I echo what Mr. Roosevelt has just said, that our chair did a great job representing the task force, soon to become an advisory group. And I think the accent had something to do with it, but other than that. No, it was, he did a great job, and yes, they were very open to it, and no pushback whatsoever. So
Yeah.
I think they see the value in what our group does.
Ready to keep up the good work. Martha?
Yes, thank you, sir. I echo that as well. I was not present at the meeting, but I watched on the YouTube live. And, you know, I'm definitely I'm flattered with all the good comments, and you did excellent work, Peter. Entire board through the years, I think they were working, there was many projects that you count the current commissioners to understand what is the actual other one. There was no need for further discussion. I was pleased to hear that, and I'm happy that we asked for it, right? Maybe sometimes we just need to remind where we're standing, and it looks like it was very easy, right? We were ready with all those meetings and presentations, and maybe we need to read the list of the accomplished projects, and it looks like they understand our value.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would be remiss of me to say, I think over the years, you know, everybody has given their best at serving this group, and it's clear to me that they have listened to a lot of what we have said, and they value our input. So, you know, I pay thanks to everybody that went before, including the last chair, Marion and Marna. Before I get Roosevelt, Marna, do you want to introduce somebody that I'm with?
Oh, yes, so
just for our information.
a public person from outside, introduce himself.
My name is Michelle. I'm the City of Margate's new PR intern for the summer.
Public relations, so I think that she would enjoy the coming to the board and see the structure, how we discuss items.
Good.
So she follows me everywhere for the summer. She's probably gonna be in the July meeting as well. You know,
We have a joiner.
We don't have
I don't think we have July.
I think we can.
Well, we haven't, I'm going to bring that up, but
Okay.
Oh, well, we'll find out.
so,
Thank you, Lisa.
okay, Roosevelt, you had something you wanted to say?
Although at the time, they didn't have Ralph there, he came back.
Yeah. So you're appreciated as well, Ralph, thank you. Is he there?
Thanks, I think.
All right, so that, finally we can cross that off. I intend to keep an eye on the agenda to see when the draft ordinance is brought back. And then we'll look at that in due course, hopefully. So, the next item on the agenda is new business, the city's procedure for calculating water and wastewater capacity. Now,
Is that?
Samila,
Yes.
do we have anybody that's,
I believe he's on his way,
that's fine.
Yeah, if you wanna,
Yeah, he's on the way from the DST building, so he's driving through the rain,
Okay,
so maybe
so,
about
okay,
15.
so we
hopefully we
can,
don't have any flooding today.
circle back.
Oh, yes, speaking of that, stormwater.
So we can go forward to public works update, water and sewer breaks. Mark, anything to say there?
Let me see. We had two water main breaks, you know, and it looks like we had
You had
five
you had four, I think it was.
5 sewer breaks.
Five sewer breaks. Only one seemed to be that, well, it wasn't that, but it was a large-ish pipe, can't read this now.
Some of those were like blockages from businesses. If you look at the sewer where it says lateral blockage, I remember those two being like from restaurants, they were like grease traps that were maintained.
So, but speaking of that, so does the city has the program to monitor the grease traps cleaning for the private food establishment?
If they do, it will have to be operations, but I don't know if they have that or not. We can find out if there is a program to monitor. Go ahead.
Hi Nancy.
Good morning, good afternoon, hope everyone is well and staying dry. The Environmental and Regulatory Affairs team does regular grease trap inspections. We changed our ordinance about 5 years ago or so, to allow city staff to require documentation of regular pump outs of the grease traps. And we have recently determined that we're going to increase our inspections of the grease traps because we are starting to see an increase in the blockages. But the city has the right to go on the property and ask to have the grease trap open so that we can inspect. Does that answer your question?
Yes, excellent. Thank you, Nancy. And also, because right now, as you know, the FDEP gave that program kind of back to the utilities. So we don't really, we actually have to administer that program for the FDEP. So the problem is, you know, that we just, like you said, we have to have in the ordinance that they need to have a contract of the grease trap cleaners and provide a copy of that contract to the city and the documentation when the manifest when the grease traps were cleaned. And they, with the not the sanitary center, with the wastewater treatment plant inspections, I know that they asking for those records if the program is with the city, and they also ask if we have the records and the contracts if they have assigned those contracts with the vacuuming companies. So there was some change in the FDP laws 2 years ago, and I believe it was effective July last year. When right now every food establishment they're supposed to have a contract signed with the regular cleaning grease traps, which the city doesn't really have to do anything other than enforce. So the DEP let us enforce with the enforcement, and we can have different methods, right? Like you said, you guys have inspectors in it, and that's how they're enforcing. Or you can just tell them, hey, you have to give us records every quarter, and you have to be on a schedule. If we're missing every quarter, we're gonna come and inspect. So it's
You said at the beginning, they have to provide FDEP with a
no,
copy.
they have to provide the city.
And
so-
who is they?
The restaurants, like the
Oh,
food establishment, wherever they have a fried pans and the fried, because it is a fats and oils that
Yeah.
they're being discharged to the sanitary sewers.
Yeah.
And that makes total sense when we talk about the lateral blockage that Omar said, that's probably restaurants, because that's when they block first, right? They go through the laterals to the sanitary sewer that's owned by the city. So the DEP gave us freedom how we're gonna administer that program, because back in the days there was really no laws, but looks like the city put already in the ordinance, which is good, so they can enforce. But I know the DEP asked the cities how we administer those programs. They not tell you exactly how, but they ask if the program is existing with the city and if we enforce it, because we do have a right to enforce.
Dr. Gassman, do you want to comment on that?
Regardless of what the current state requirements are, again, the city set up the framework so that we could come in and easily inspect and require the documentation. So I'm currently looking for the regulation now, so I can share that with the task force, but we are regularly inspecting these facilities to ensure that they are doing regular pump outs on the frequency that's required by our ordinance.
Okay, thank you. Roosevelt?
Dr. Gassman, I'm a little bit concerned with who enforcing the regulations, and when we ask them to report, who is verifying the content of the report, whether or not it's been done. I mean, we put anything we want on paper, but was the job actually done? It's where my concern is. And being involved in city and county and other things, I know that people have a tendency to get a little lost in facts, non-facts. And so if we have a team of people with the city that's verifying whether or not the content in the report is true, I would like to know who that is.
And so once again, we can request the documentation, but we are adjusting our inspection techniques to actually lift the lid, which we were not necessarily doing consistently. We were looking at the documentation, and if the documentation demonstrated that they were meeting the requirement of the ordinance, we were moving on. But at this point, we are starting to shift the way we're inspecting, and we are more often popping the lid of the grease trap to ensure that it looks like it's been regularly maintained.
James?
Dr. Gassman, are those announced or unannounced inspections?
To my knowledge, they're unannounced, we have a list and we go through the list, and when we're available, we show up and say, hey, we're here and we're gonna look at your records and see how.
Lada?
So Dr. Gassman, with the FDP regulations, I just wanna clarify, because there was a very good news for the city, that every owner of the grease trap must have a contract, sign it with the vacuum company. And I think that regulation was actually pushed by probably private vacuum owners, so they can have a contract statewide. But helps us as a utility, so we was supported by the utilities across the states because help us to maintain our gravity system and not have those problems. So it's just something what maybe, I know I'm looking at myself that, the enforcement is on us, but it's a state law that they must have a contract signed with regular maintenance, and they must provide utilities wherever they discharge the manifest when the grease traps were cleaned. There's a lot of cities that they don't have a staff, until it's problem to hire people and keep them, retain, and train them what to do and how to inspect. It takes time to inspect those grease traps. So I think the fact that the state helped us utilities, that's something that's worth to mention, and with the enforcement especially. So it's not really the ordinance, but it's actually state law. They must have any food establishment, I don't know, they doing fried chicken in a Chinese restaurant or, Italian restaurant, and anybody who has a permitted grease trap, which is collaboration with your permitting and engineering division to see who actually owns the grease trap, which establishment, and they must have a signed contract. So, and regular maintenance, every 6 months, and provide those records to the city. So that may help a little bit with the, enforcement.
I'll need to check with our compliance manager as to how we've adjusted because of changes in DEP requirements. But again, under our ordinance, we don't require them to send us those records. We require them to produce those records upon request. So I'll need to check with them to see what our current guidelines are. But currently, under city ordinance, we don't require them to send us the record. We only require them to produce them upon showing up on site.
If I may,
Yeah, Ralph?
thank you, lower the hand here. When I was with Broward County, we found that there was not only restaurants, but plastic, companies that were putting in plastics into the manholes in their immediate area. And I'm just wondering if there's any city, ordinance and checking on these type of, companies that are putting in other than what should be put in.
Yeah, the city has a comprehensive pre-treatment industrial program that's required as part of our license for the wastewater treatment plant. And we get regularly audited by DEP to make sure that we are reviewing those types of businesses that are required to have pre-treatment.
Thanks, Nancy, appreciate it.
Okay,
I have one more.
okay, James.
Omar, this may be for you. So, on the 2 sewer main breaks where the lateral blockage occurred, is there a fine associated with that to the offending restaurant?
I don't know. Nancy, do you know about
Dr.
that?
Gassman, do you know? Is there fines associated when those things happen?
Generally speaking, no. The question is whether there is a repair that's required. If the repair is upstream of the right of way, then that repair is requirement of the property owner. If the repair is downstream, we, generally speaking, the city cleans it up and we.
But yeah, I don't think there is a fine when that happens, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. So that is that item. Samia, do we know when our guest is arriving and further update on that?
I don't know.
It's all right, we can move on and.
I have one more question.
Okay, I'm sorry, Mother, I'll come back to that.
The force main,
Yes, the
what
first one.
happened with the brake on the force main?
What happened to what?
To the brake on the force main, 16-inch force main.
One of those breaks
How-
is a,
They don't break
false
easy,
main.
so I kind of wanna know what's happening.
Is that a pump station failure though?
On the 21st, May 21st, last one on the list.
57th and Federal.
I will have to get specific information about that specific break. I don't know all the details. I mean,
My only added question to that is about the pump stations and their run times and a certain length of time during the day. They're reckoned to be becoming overloaded. So my question would be, is this
if it's related to something like that.
something other than, is this a sign that the pump station is becoming overloaded? Or is it something in the nature of a true breakage? So when you're investigating.
We can get detailed information on this break and send it out, Simil, so we'll get that.
Okay, Martha, anything else?
No, that's all, thank you.
Okay, so we're gonna move on to committee comments. I got a couple of things. Anybody have something for the committee before I get going? No? Okay. So, with respect to the minutes, it was said, and James brought this up, there was a question about the priority of the neighbourhoods for the stormwater management, and that item would go to the Commission on June the 3rd. And as James said, that isn't actually on tomorrow's agenda.
It was moved to June 17th.
It was moved, okay. We did go on the record as saying after it had been to the Commission, we'd also like to see it as well.
I'm sorry, did he say move?
17.
17th.
That's what I wanted.
Let me see here now. Oh, and then we had Lindsay, I think it was requesting that we get a presentation on to do with sidewalks and bicycle lanes, and I can tell the group that Samila, she did reach out to Transportation and Mobility to try and get a presentation on that, but they were unavailable. So I'm sure she'll keep looking into that. And as a substitute, we were supposed to have a presentation on to do with calculating water and wastewater capacity, which I think is an interesting subject in its own right. James?
So, Peter, regarding the sidewalks, it's one department is in charge of new sidewalk, but another department is in charge of maintenance of the sidewalk. So, which were we looking for?
We were looking for, Transportation and Mobility does more overall planning of infrastructure. So I took it that we were looking for who is looking at the city for missing pieces of sidewalk and which areas might deserve a completely new sidewalk. Jim, I got that basically right?
That's Tam, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah, that's Tam.
you're correct.
And
Tam is has the master plan for the future sidewalk connections to increase mobility.
now, but let me ask you this, because this has happened to me 3 or 4 times. You know how we have quite a lot of sidewalks that just wrap around a corner, and there's a little piece that's missing quite often for you to walk out to the edge of the road and cross the road. Does that come under you, or that's surely not big enough to qualify for? Is
It
that?
is under TAM.
Is it really?
Those are new ADA ramps that have to be installed at each of those corners. Those are typically constructed in the Knoll Ridge, Imperial Point, and northeastern areas of the city.
It serves 2 purposes. One, to notify the person if they happen to be blind, would have the little bumps in the middle, and a get down place off the sidewalk, or not.
Whatever your concern is on the sidewalk, you just enter to the best of your ability in the C-Click Fix or call customer service, and then it'll be routed. If it's an existing sidewalk that needs to be looked at, like those little bumps or something starting to unravel, or there's a crack, that'll be repaired based on priority and funding. And then if it's a missing section that you require or you request to be constructed, like a new ramp or a section of a residential neighborhood block, then that would go into a different, would be transferred to the other department to be put on that list. They have a running list of sidewalk requests for, a gap is what Transportation Mobility calls it, where there's a gap of missing sidewalk, where you wanna connect one street to another.
Okay.
Did that answer your question? Or is that-
Yeah, one, under the ADA compliance, the city was responsible for putting in, we like to call it wheelchair ramps, so that people can, but if it's wave and ride, how do you put the wheelchair ramps in the right place?
I can't answer that. The wave and ride, I don't. Well, if someone is able to, not everybody needs a ramp to get from the edge of the, sidewalk to the street.
Yeah.
Most people can go up and down a curb. It's only those wheelchair or people who need more accessibility need the ramp. Then they would wave and ride at the corner. I'm just,
Are these new infrastructure you're talking about?
Yes.
Oh, that would be
It-
designed when they were doing the.
Not only they're new, but they, in addition to what's already there. Broward County Transit have, these ramps so wheelchairs can get on and off the sidewalk.
Yeah, it's ADA.
And usually it's at the bus stop so that it can serve two purposes. But Fort Lauderdale,
Well, I'm have to disagree on that because you don't put ADA ramps on bus stops, cause you don't wanna encourage a mid-block crossing when there's no mid-block crossing.
yeah, but
They go at the
I should say
intersection.
near bus stops because they don't want you coming down into road. I know, cause I'm the one that wrote the information about it. They come down off the ramp, we don't want them rolling around in the road, so we want the ramp to be close to whether it's the bus stop sign or the bus stop shelter. It doesn't make a difference to the person that we are forcing out into the road, into traffic. And I just want to know, where are we with the city portion of the ramps that is mandatory by federal government?
It sounds more like a TAM question, but I will say, any new infrastructure that requires ramps will have ramps.
May I interrupt here for a second?
Ralph?
Some time back, I brought to the attention to the city that, about the ADA ramps, being inconsistent. An example that I gave was from, northeast, 62nd Street north on northeast 21st Road to McNabb, where they are inconsistent. They'll have some and then they stop. And so someone in a wheelchair will have a great deal of difficulty going, getting in from the ramp that leads to one that doesn't have one to the, whichever direction he or she are going. Nothing has happened since, that's been a couple of years or something. What can be done so that if you're going to have, excuse me, handicap ramps, that they're consistently through one end to the other?
Good question.
The thing is, it's such a broad question. If there's I'll give you quite a few scenarios. So if you have a new developer comes, right? And let's say they take up the whole block, through their permitting, they're gonna be required to do the sidewalk, do the ADA ramps, all that things. The thing is, if there's no sidewalk on the other side, you don't put an ADA ramp to nothing, right? I'll preface it that way. Now, if you're talking about missing portions, I'm assuming that's something TAM is working on. What Public Works Engineering does is take care of things that are already existing that are broken.
Right.
So I think for a more comprehensive answer on that, you might want to ask that for TAM.
Do we wanna get Tam to, when is the next meeting?
Well, they have to decide if they're gonna have a meeting in July. I
Yes.
requested
Seventh, I think,
Sam,
yes.
but they were unavailable.
Yeah, because they might be able to answer all your questions about
Yeah,
new sidewalks.
It's my question.
Well, I just think it's, it's one development, it's an imperial point, and it's one development, so, you can't use that excuse. It's just, basically, it's, what I was only able to find out is that they had repaving of the roads, and during that process, where they repaved that portion, they had to put in, the ADA ramps. But, the whole area's probably been paved more than once over the decade. Just trying to bring a point out again that there is a missing ADA ramps where that started either to the north or to the south, and they're not consistently throughout. That's that portion of Northeast 21st Road.
Well, let me just check, Ralph,
Okay.
with Jill, that statement, that where roads are being resurfaced and there are sidewalks, that the ADA ramps will be provided new? Was that what you think is the policy, Ralph?
Well, that's what I was told, and that where there wasn't any handicap ramps, when they were repaving it, I think they had to go ahead and install, construct the ADA ramps.
Jill?
But for those portions along 21st Road, if you're starting from Northeast 62nd Street going north, and you're going up the sidewalk, and then there's different interruptions before you can get to McNabb Road, it's kind of like, okay, now the person has to get back out in the street, go around and hope to get on the sidewalk without, it's just, have to go in a driveway, and that's kind of a bad situation, but, it's just, something I wanted to bring back to the city's attention and see if they can do anything about it.
Let me just check whether, Jill Priestley has anything to add to that. Is that your understanding as well, Jill?
Well, Ralph's point has been noted, and he's correct in a lot of his statements. But what we do is when we do resurface a street, part of the annual resurfacing, milling and resurfacing, we do upgrade the ADA ramps and also repairing the sidewalks in that block. However, if it requires a new design, we are unable to do a ramp or new sidewalk because there may be a conflict of utility or some other storm structure, and it's not as easy as just pouring, an ADA ramp and putting the technical map in, then we don't do that.
Okay.
Sort of like some existing conditions you may see throughout the city, there may be a big storm outlet right at the corner where someone's trying to pass. You can't put a concrete ramp over a storm outlet without having some new design. So 99% of what Ralph is saying is accurate, but there are those cases that we cannot put a ramp in without having an actual design project.
Now one thing that the city staff can point to is all this requires money. And going back a few years, one of the recommendations from the ITF to the City Commission was that the city should dedicate 10% approximately of its general fund for these kind of, capital improvements in general on city streets, etc., and these kind of things as well. But I don't think that the city's ever actually got close to that 10% number. It's overflowing amounts of money to do this with. All right, so Ralph, Roosevelt, sorry.
When you contact whoever it is that you're going to contact, I would ask that you find out from them where the wave and ride, that's the little buses.
Got you.
The wave and ride, where there is no ADA
Nearby ramp.
ramps. What are we doing at the city level to make that happen? Because we've been told twice by the federal government to do it, and it was supposed to have been done by the city, and like Ralph said, we're going back a few years, and it's still not being done. And I don't know how we can continue to ignore. Well, I guess everybody else ignoring the coats and the laws. I guess we could.
Well,
I'm sorry.
the ADA law generates a huge amount of requirements that, are basically budget busters for a lot of cities. So the city has been working through stuff, I know that. I don't think we're in any different position to anybody else. I'm not making excuses. But maybe, Jamila can add that to what she talks to transportation and mobility about. Anything else on this? Samila, do we have anybody here now?
Yes, they're here.
So, but what I think I'd like to do though is to finish this item, and then the last thing was going to be a discussion about when we're going to meet, and that's relevant to the request that we again try and get transportation and mobility here. So the other thing I was going to bring up, which I read as part of the minutes, was the question when we had the presentation on the status of the new water plant. There was a discussion of the PFAS, and in fact the Commission also has a presentation tomorrow on their agenda of the status of the water plant. And again, obviously the PFAS are mentioned in there, but the more I thought about it, it concerns me. There's going to be, as I understand it, there's going to be a study, and I'm not quite sure what form the study takes, into how to treat the water to meet what ostensibly is the draft required standard. And it seemed like that study was going to take quite a long time, that was left in the time span to complete the water plant. So I'm a little concerned that we don't get near the end of the water plant and then have to go to the Commission with some, well, we can't get close to the desired standard. So it's not exactly your subject, Omar, but can
No.
you address that?
No, I mean, what's gonna happen is that they're gonna do this pilot to figure out which type of membrane best remove PFAS. They're gonna try different types of membranes.
Using the equipment that's been installed, or?
No, this is a pilot, it's a pilot trailer. So they're gonna bypass some of the water to this trailer to just do a pilot test. And they're gonna try different kind of membranes to see which one is more effective on the, removal of PFAS.
So that is, in the Commission's presentation, there's a slide that says pilot skid to arrive by August 2025. So that's what's being brought in
Yeah,
to run that test.
right. And that give us enough time to figure out that pilot is gonna run probably a few months, and that's gonna give them time to figure out. And the membranes that they have in mind might do just fine with this pilot, so we might not have to change anything. But it's just a type of membrane that might have to be, modified or get a different kind, but we have enough time with this pilot to get the plant running as the scheduled date of September 2026.
So this pilot rig, does it just contain the nanofiltration equipment? Or?
Yeah, it's just gonna have a few vessels with different kind of membranes on each vessel. And what they're gonna do, they're gonna bypass some of the well water through there and take samples at the outlet of the membranes.
But we also have ion exchange being provided in the new plant as well.
Correct, but this is just for the membranes. Remember, the membranes are 70% of the plant, right? 30% is ion exchange. So if you remove the PFAS with the 70% of the membranes, the ion exchange is gonna remove also PFAS, not as well as membrane, but that's what they're doing. They're making sure that the ratio is correct.
It seems you just have to be careful with this, terminology, will remove PFAS, because nothing is going to remove 100% of PFAS, as I understand it. But there is a standard that may or may not come into being that's quite difficult to meet. And in my mind, the sooner we find out whether we can meet it or not meet it, the better.
I agree, and that's why we're doing it in August. We should have enough time to figure out if the membrane selection that we have is the ones that are gonna be used,
Just so that I understand this a little better, are we gonna have just one study going on? Are we gonna have several studies going on at the same time and utilize the best?
We're gonna have one study at the same time, but we're gonna have different membranes on each vessel, right? So the vessel is the one that houses the membrane.
Okay,
So we're gonna have, I don't know how many they're gonna have, but the water is gonna be routed through each vessel using different type of membranes. So samples are gonna, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, the membranes to take care of PFAS isn't a new idea. There's plenty of plants throughout the country. Granted, there are different types of PFAS, but certainly, you can reduce the number of membranes down to what would work more efficiently and effective down here in South Florida. So I'm agreeing, with it. I just want to make sure that we're not trying to recreate the wall. It's already been built. We just got to make sure that we refine it to serve our needs at our plant. Make sure that it's going to be the most effective to get the PFAS out.
Right, and with, like I said, with the membranes that are gonna be on that plant, they might be sufficient enough to remove the PFAS. You might have to tweak the pressure a little bit through those membranes, and those are the kind of things that they're doing here. And they're just gonna try a different type of membrane for each vessel.
So if the study says you need this type of membrane or membranes, can you then fit the plant with those, or are they already
Yeah,
planned?
no, the membranes
You
is
can
the,
change those out.
yeah, you can change membrane, they're all the same size, they go in the vessel, and there just might be difference in the porosity of those membranes. And the pressure might have to be tweaked, stuff like that, but we feel like it's gonna be minor. We're pretty confident that the membranes that are gonna go on the plant are gonna take care of the PFAS, but this is just to make sure that we don't have, if we had to change the pressure or change a type of membrane, that can be done before we purchase all the membranes.
So this study does not, the rig does not arrive until August.
Right.
So you won't be able to tell us anything about that until the earliest September, and probably not until October, right?
Yeah, but remember, it's September 2026,
What's September 2020?
when we start the new plan. This is being done August 2025.
I'm just concerned that you don't get near the end of the plant, and find that additional things are needed as a result of this trial plant that you're doing. So the quicker this happens, in my mind, I'm not the expert, the better. So I'm just saying to you now that this, what's coming in, you won't be able to say to us probably until October, if when you tell me, well, now we're really confident that the new plant's going to be able to handle this.
Well, I mean, this pilot system is being built right now, because we signed the change order about, this PFAS thing came recently, so this is being built. That's what we don't have it in place right now. But once it's built, they're gonna bring it on site and they're gonna run the pilot test.
Okay, well, perhaps you can come back to us as soon as you're able to, and tell us what the results are.
Yeah, and we wanna feel confident. I'm pretty confident with the membranes that we have, but we just wanna make sure in case any kind of pressure, like I said, needs to be tweaked on the system. That's part of it.
Thank you, John. Well, I do have to agree with Ralph that we kind of, repeating, those membranes, the manufacturer, they know exactly what they can accomplish, what kind of material they can remove or not. So I don't think, I think there's a need for the ion exchange pilot testing, because we may have a different media and we don't know how long that media may last, and you probably want to pick the one that is removing the PFAS but also lasts the longest months in a city before you have to put the new media. The membranes, they strip down everything from the water. You actually need to probably add chemicals to keep the water quality instead of just because they're very good. So I think the manufacturers, they know exactly. I think it's just the doing 6 months another pilot for membranes. I'm shocked because I think there is a lot of material and the manufacturer, they know that the membranes, how they perform. And I think to mimic the membranes performance, I think it's just not only the time, but also money. So I agree with Ralph that probably better research would give us that answers instead of having 6 months pilot right now. But with that, I think there is a good news that the current EPA administration Mr. Zellman, he extended the compliance timeline for the PFAS. So we all gonna be have to comply by 2031. There's, obviously it's not recommended to comply at that time. It's sooner. It's good, but he gave us some additional time. So with the extensions and everything, we can talk about this in 2031. So right now we're sitting in 2025. Looks like we have additional 6 years to construct those treatment plants across the United States. So that was a positive news across the United States because construction is not only costly, but everybody's trying to build something at the same time. So that would give us some more time. And on the numbers, they kept the number 4, but they still consider some additional analysis. They didn't want to just give us
4
number.
parts per trillion.
Parts per trillion, correct. That's the.
They stayed with that, but they've just extended the deadline for,
They extended
or
that
are
line
likely to.
meet the parts parts per trillion. But they removed the hazardous index, which is also very positive news because there was PFAS before, and there's also hazardous index, which is a huge formula that was very unstable because it looks like there was very open. So 1 year from now, 2 years from now, we can add new chemicals to that long formula and just say, hey, this is your new hazardous index, right? So I think the utilities were challenging how to comply with this hazardous index. So they canceled that, but they kept it 4, and they gave us more time. So I think, considering the city is doing the pilot testing right now, we do have that time. To do the pilot testing or to get the right membranes. Looks like Omar said they already signed the change order. All good. I would be more worried if you have the time on 2027, like was original time on 2027.
Yeah.
So right now, you have to comply by 2021. Good news. Time to do pilot testing and get the right membranes.
Yeah, I mean, part of the pilot it wasn't part of the agreement. It didn't talk about any PFAS or anything, and we just wanna make sure that by doing this pilot, we can incorporate that later into the agreement. So,
All right, so I guess it's all right, but perhaps you bear this in mind, and as soon as you able to say anything definitive about what this test plant results has shown, we'd like to know it.
Alright.
We're looking at this stuff on behalf of the city commission. We've got loads of other things on their plate, and we're getting a new plant, and the last thing we want to have happen is that it has difficulty meeting some required standard of run.
yeah, and remember when we first signed that agreement, there was no mention of PFAS at all. That came out like 6 months later.
Yep.
So.
But that was draft already, Omar, and I leave this up to
We signed-
consultants to
we
provide the best recommendation at that time for the city. There was, in the industry, there was a lot of talk already about the PFAS before. We all had the UCMR, we all knew it is gonna come down.
But we signed that agreement in, I think it was 2022, 2021, I can't remember. This was a while
For the
back.
construction.
Yeah,
Well,
I can't remember the exact date, but
I will say it's getting serious now, because I read a thing the other day that says they found PFAS in beer.
in beer.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Wait for more
So
water.
now everyone will take notice.
yeah. anyway, but we'll let you know as soon as we know any results, but I'm not too concerned about it.
Okay, so, you just let us know. Now, the other thing I was gonna do is talk about our upcoming meetings. So the commission's last meeting is, actually on June the 30th, on a Monday. And they don't meet again until August the 19th. In the normal course of events, we would meet, on, July the
So,
7th
That's
and August the 4th, is it? So,
would be, August,
That's September,
so September,
the Labor Day, right?
yes,
yeah,
August the 4th,
yeah.
and then actually going on, the commission's meeting, after their break, or, yes, they meet in, August the 19th is the first meeting up, and then their next one is actually September the 3rd, because they push it a day because of the Labour Day.
That's it.
But I'm thinking we don't need a meeting on either July the 7th or, August the, what did I say, the 4th? My preference would be to cancel the one on August the 4th, but I don't really mind whatever. I don't think we need both those meetings at this point, because we're already, have a couple of things that are due to come back to us. I'm not sure whether they're gonna come or not. So how do other people? A slight preference for the, to not do the 4th, August the 4th. Slight preference for the, to not do the 4th, August the 4th.
No,
The other way around.
Not do July, whatever.
seven.
Not do
Not July 7th.
It's the 4th of July weekend, so 4th of July, it's on Friday, and for my travel, or on the Monday, it's coming.
Does everybody else feel the same? Looks like,
I do, I'm with Roosevelt.
yeah, looks like I would not be there on August the 4th or the subsequent one, which was why I had the preference for the 17th. But if you guys want to not do the, what did we say? Not do the 7th of
July
July.
7th.
I'll live with that.
I'd much rather have you there, Mr. Chair. So if having your presence would require me giving up July 7th, I give up July 7th.
Anybody can chair this
We-
meeting.
So Chair, what is your blackout dates? So you're not gonna be
I would not
available
be here
July?
I would not be here on July, excuse me, I would
August.
not be here on August the 4th
August.
or September, whatever it is in September, whether it's the
September
2nd or the
2nd,
8th. It would be the 2nd
The 8th.
normally,
Oh, eighth is gonna have
be
to
the 8th, and I wouldn't be there for that either,
the first is Monday, that'll be Labor Day in September.
yes.
Yes,
So we can't do it that day, so a week
No.
later is the
Well,
eighth.
yeah, normally we do it we push it a day like the
So
commission,
you
but
gotta
yes,
miss-
it would be the 8th, but
you'll
I'd
be
still,
missing 2
I'd still miss that, yes.
So you're gonna miss 2 meetings, Peter, is that what you're
Yes.
saying?
In fact, I may miss more than that as well, I think, but
so
that'll do to start with.
with all due respect, I will not also be available on September 8th, because I will also be traveling out of country in September. So I think we both will miss in September if
Yeah.
we schedule to meet on
Yeah.
September 8th.
Yeah, we both be missing that.
Okay,
So maybe we need to
when
postpone.
will you be available after the September the 8th, will be September what date?
15, Monday?
I don't know.
Cause I sure hate to
The
miss.
15th is the next Monday.
I'll hate to miss.
No, I won't be able to.
15th.
It looks like I'm not gonna be back in the country, I'm going out of the country for a long time. I won't be back in the country until October the 11th.
Wow.
Good for you.
So
So you're having a different chair for sure. So
So you're gonna miss 3.
I'm gonna, this, if you, yeah,
So Marta.
unless we don't do the July meeting, then I'll miss 2. I mean, unless we,
Well, you're gonna miss.
unless we do the
Miss August, September, and
I'm
October.
gonna do the July meeting, if we have it,
Yes,
which is why I had a preference to have it. I will miss the August meeting,
Right.
And
I'll
September.
miss the September meeting,
And
and if the
October.
October meeting is on the 6th, I'll miss that.
then you'll be out of the committee
Yeah,
You're fired.
maybe.
with the 3
But
absentees.
don't forget, it's, don't forget, it's, gonna become a board, so.
Okay, so let's save some, I think we've both been missing September 8th. So is anybody else is opposed or in favor to cancel the September 8th? Because I think that would at least give you,
Oh, okay.
you to miss
Yeah,
2
that would-
meetings,
yes,
if that's the case.
That's good lateral thinking there, yes. Let's do that, how's about that?
So we'll skip July,
No, we will have a July.
we're gonna have
We're
July.
gonna have July, not August.
And yeah, we're
And
gonna
not
skip
September,
August,
Marta,
yeah.
or August.
And what, and September?
You can do August, Marta.
I can do August, I can have like.
So maybe
July
maybe we
and
do
August.
July and August and not September.
Correct.
And then you will chair the, at least the,
October,
well,
and then
you'll,
you'll be back.
you'll chair, you'll chair the August meeting as well.
Correct. Between
That'll
us.
be 2 meetings
Okay.
for
And
me.
then you'll be back in November, because
Yes.
I'm sure there will be something, well, November we should be okay, because the holidays are in 11.
So let me repeat this proposal, which I'm gonna couch as Marta's proposal. And that is that the group does the July the 7th meeting, you do the August the 4th meeting, and you cancel the September the 8th meeting. Is that right, Marta?
I'll look at that.
Then you miss 1, I miss 2.
And then our October meeting would be the 6th.
Our October meeting would be, still be the
The
6th,
6th.
but I would miss that one. And
And
that would only be 2 meetings. I
and
miss.
city commission is, where was their schedule again, one more time,
City
please?
Commission comes back to work
When did
on
they leave?
August.
When did they leave?
They leave on June, the last meeting is June the 30th.
That's a Monday.
That's still correct, I checked that. Then they come back, the next meeting is August the 19th. And then the next meeting in September is September the 3rd.
So they're gone 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're gonna do July the 7th, August the 4th, no meeting in September, and October the 6th. You wanna make that as a motion, right? Do we need a motion, Samala, for this?
Yeah, we will.
Okay.
But I see when James is going, like, you wanna align the meetings with the city commissioners.
Well-
Looks like July 7 is on the way. Because there's.
They're gonna meet on June 30th,
And then August.
and then they're gone, so. Okay, so we'll have light meetings then, yeah.
Well, the other, not to throw a wrench in the gears here, but the other salient point is,
And
exactly,
no,
what about the rest of the gang? What are they planning on doing?
Well,
Exactly.
speak up, now's the time, I
They,
think.
we're not gonna quorum, right?
well, we don't have a quorum.
There's no meeting.
Well, you can meet, you just can't,
Can't do anything.
you can vote, you can do general discussion and stuff like that. But, so the fact that they are not here, should have little or no weight on what decision are made today. What we made today should stand.
So this will be my suggestion, Roosevelt, that you decide to keep the meetings, we decide to keep the meetings on July the 7th and August the 4th. And then on August the 4th, you can decide whether to have the September meeting. Rather than decide it now.
That'll take care of it.
It's not a concern, I'm just saying that I think chances of pulling a quorum on July 7th,
That's what, yeah.
Given what's happened today, right, which would be, we
It's the Monday after the 4th of July
we
week.
scrapped.
it's,
How about the staff? Do we have support and nobody's scheduling vacation?
What's Samira, do the staff have a position? Basically, you knew that we had scheduled meetings, so one way or the other, somebody must have planned to handle them, right? Not necessarily you, but
Right, there's always gonna be representation from the city staff. As of right now, there is no conflict, so whatever you guys decide.
Okay.
so the first question is, do you want to cancel the which is the next meeting, the July the 7th meeting, for the reasons that Jerry said? That would be the first decision, to cancel that. So, shall I make a motion to cancel
You
that?
can,
I'll make a motion to cancel that. Is there a second for that?
I second.
Any discussion on that? All those in favour of cancelling that meeting on
July 7th.
July 7th, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
And I guess I wrote no, but that still passes. But I can't abstain, correct?
No, can't.
And then the next question, which you don't have to address now, is, because you can address it on August the 4th, is whether you're going to cancel September's meeting, knowing that at least 2 people are going to be out.
Yeah.
So you want to cross that bridge when you come to it?
Yes.
Well, the question would be if we both out, chair and vice chair, then who would,
It's voted upon.
Pardon me?
It's voted upon.
So
Okay.
what'll happen, Mark?
Okay.
The ones that present will vote for chair.
Okay,
And then what will happen is, they'll meet on August the 4th. If you're struggling for a quorum on August the 4th, then that may affect what you decide to do in September.
Yeah.
So knowing, sure that 2 people won't be. Okay, so that's that. So I think we addressed that as far as we're able to.
So for clarification, you guys are canceling or wanting to cancel July 7th meeting and then be present for August.
And the August the 4th meeting is on.
Okay.
so next meeting.
And I'll be able to look at the minutes, what you prepare for August the 4th. I will be able to look at that, to get that agenda ready, even though I won't be at the meeting.
And Marta will lead August 4th.
Yeah.
We'll decide it on August 4th whether or not to do
Yeah.
what we're doing it for September.
Yeah.
And we will definitely be having something on October 6th.
Yes. The way it stands at the
You're back, you're here, October 6th.
last week.
I planning my vacation for September, so I don't have my tickets yet, no change. So subject to change, we decided on August 4th.
Alright.
So Samira, perhaps you follow up on with transportation and mobility, and maybe with me on what will go on the agenda for August the 4th. Okay, so now we can circle back, I think.
Yeah.
And do we have somebody here now?
Yes.
Our main item.
Yeah.
We're ready for you. Want to introduce yourselves?
Igor Vasilyev, we're the group that does the capacity evaluation and modeling for
Can you come
the.
down here a bit, because it's especially hard for me to hear.
And the
We're
camera
down
will see him too.
Yeah, it's the camera will see you here. I'll give you a name again.
Igor Vasilyev. And there's Alejandra Simon, another member of our group. that performs the capacity evaluations for new commercial and residential developments for the city.
So just to give you a little background, this group is funded by Public Works, but they're based on DSD, and all the modeling is done over there, and they, you know, they don't work directly for Public Works, they interact also with DSD. But we fund those 3 positions over there.
They're physically in the DSD.
Yeah, physically in DSD, yeah.
Okay, we're kind of a hub for information and permit reviews, or if you will, the Public Works ambassadors at DSD. So, and one of the big part of our work function is performing the capacity evaluations. So I don't know how much you're aware of the process. Basically, as a part of DRC reviews, the developer is required to obtain a water and wastewater capacity availability letter. For that, they submit an application to us with all the numbers, the ERC calculations, ERC equivalent residential connection calculations, and their flows and site plans. We look at it and we determine how well it fits or does not fit the current water and wastewater and force mains pump stations. And it depends at what area of the city they're developing, of course, because if you take some areas of downtown, most likely the developer will be required to make some improvements. And we do the analysis, like long story short, we do the analysis using hydraulic models, computer models, Software InfoWater Pro, InfoWorks for the sewer models. And as a result, we come up with a report. It's a 8 to 10 page document which has all the numbers and all the graphs and all the layouts. And in details, it says whether or not that new development can be supported by the current city infrastructure, or it cannot. And if it cannot, then we specify what improvements will be required for that development to fit in.
And I know the process, but some people, don't. And that's why I've suggested that you come. But those letters, or the report that you write, accompanies the development application through DRC, and then if necessary, the City Commission, right?
Yes.
So any developments in the past, you can look up and see the report that you did and how you calculated that, how the capacity was sufficient to meet the increased demand. That's a bit correct summary.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's
James?
That's correct.
So, you have building A and building site B. Building A, they request this letter, you get back to them, such and such improvements have to be made to the city's infrastructure. The developer makes those changes and everything is hunky-dory. Building site B, then they want to build something there too. Is the information updated based on how quickly does the information get updated? So building A has been asked to do infrastructure improvements, and now building B right next door wants to put up something. Will the information that was done for building A then go into the calculations for the new site, building B? It does.
Yes,
So
yes,
it
it will.
happens.
Yes, it will. We're updated on a project by project basis. Once the project is done, we keep track of all the proposed changes, proposed improvements, and
So
we
wherever
have a
the-
list and a map that has all the proposed updates.
So wherever the developments are, it's all mapped out and all the improvements go into the system. So everything is kept up to date at all times.
Yeah.
Okay.
pretty much.
And you do calculations for water supply
Water and wastewater,
and for wastewater,
yes.
and wastewater includes the pipes immediately adjoining from the public right away to which the development is connecting, any pump stations that are affected, and it also includes the treatment plant capacity as well.
Yes, that's
All of that is shown
all that chain.
in your report.
Yeah, all of that is described in the report, all three components. The gravity lines, the pump station, and the treatment plant.
Question.
Ralph?
Yes, thank you. I'm gonna make sure that for the water main capacity that you include the fire rating for those new buildings. In other words, a lot of those areas would say a single family development, that's like 500 gallons per minute for a fire flow. But when you come in and you put in a high rise, et cetera, it could be 1,500, 2,000 gallons per minute. You're putting that as part of your check to make sure that the new facility meets the corresponding code for that, requirement for that.
Yes, we do that, absolutely, it's part of the study. Actually, it's good that you mentioned that the fire flow most of the times is the main limiting factor that dictates the changes or upgrades to the water system. Because it's, yes, we do calculate those.
Okay, that's good. I don't want to assume something and say, well, how come you didn't mention that?
Yes, we absolutely, we do that.
Thank you.
My question is, when I look at, it says an update on city's procedure for calculating water and wastewater capacity. Are we changing the formula for calculating capacity?
No, we're not, actually, the procedure itself is pretty much the same that we used over the years, so we're.
When you say pretty much, that means.
Yeah, the application process may have changed a little bit and.
But what you are doing now, there is no change to what you were doing yesterday. Am I correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
And when we calculate the capacity, then what are we really doing if we are not changing the formula for calculating?
Well, okay, I'll step back a little bit. If you're talking about,
There's no update to the formula. I don't know why it says update.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
then get me straight. It says update right here.
if you talk about the formulas,
I'm
yeah.
talking about the
I'm
procedure.
good, sir, I'm good.
Okay, all right.
We're getting the update.
Okay,
Yeah.
Okay.
Martha?
thank you. So Igor or Alejandra, so what is the city capacity, generally speaking? Do we have a capacity on the water, on the wastewater? Can we still keep building hotels here? Generally speaking, are we comfortable with the capacity in the city, or are we approaching 90%, or we already are? What is your first thought?
Yes, we still have the capacity. We have the capacity when it comes to water treatment. We have additional capacity when it comes to wastewater treatment. However, it depends where you look, because there are several components to the capacity. In wastewater, we have a wastewater treatment plant, wastewater pump stations, and the force mains, and the gravity system. And the other two may not have the capacity depending on the neighborhood. So let's say some of the pump stations downtown have to be upgraded because they don't have the capacity. Wastewater treatment plant has the capacity, but a pump station would not. And so are the gravity line, if you're planning on building a 700 unit hotel, then, and you have only a 8-inch sewer main there, you will have to upgrade.
And that's a great preamble to my second question.
Uh-huh.
At this moment, when you're doing your analysis and shows that there's improvements needed for a lift station and the gravity or the forceway together, who is paying for those improvements? So are you giving availability ladder with those conditions that, yes, we can give you the capacity, but you as a private developer, you're gonna have to upgrade this pump station to accommodate you, or you're not? I mean, I kind of wanna know what's the next step. Let's say I have to do those upgrades.
That's a very good question. And there are several ways to do that. We can't really tell the developer to do that, so in our letter, we basically say that these are the improvements that have to be done.
Okay,
And then between the developer and the city, or there may be several developers who are
join.
neighboring projects, they could they can work out some kind of a agreement between themselves, or they can wait until the city has a capital improvement project and improve that area.
And we know when we have those capital improvement projects, so we'll tell the developer in 2028, we're planning to replace this lift station and we can make it larger, and they're notified of that for the CIP.
Yes, but thank you, Robert, but that's a two different story, capital improvements because the aging infrastructure replacement versus capital improvement to accommodate additional new flow, right?
Yeah, but a lot of times when we redo a pump station, if to increase the flow is not a huge expense, and we have done that before for some pump stations. So, and we let them know, hey, in like 2 years from now, it's different ways that we can do it. But that's happened before, where we increased the capacity of the station.
But again, like I would like to make sure that those developers, when they come in, they would pay for the additional infrastructure that's not passed on for the residents, right? Like we're not paying to accommodate additional flow. So,
Wait
I'm
a
glad that
second,
you-
I don't think that, no, wait.
James?
You're saying that the improvements that have to be made are going to be made by the developer. I don't think that's what, they're not saying that. You're not saying that.
so they're saying they're finding a middle ground.
There's an option, well, if the developer, we notify the developer, like Omar said, that yes, then in 2028, there will be a capital improvement projects and that line was gonna be replaced by the 20-inch. If you don't wanna wait till 2028,
Okay.
you can go ahead and do it on your own.
Okay.
There is that option.
Remember, when we do these ERC calculations, they require pay capital expansion fees that go towards the expansion of the system.
And I was just gonna say that basically that's impact fees. Even if you, everything is very new and you have, very little impact, you're still paying these impact fees that go into the general pot, James.
So that was actually my next question about the impact fee. So if you have building A that, the infrastructure was already there, they didn't have to pay anything extra, there was no extra requirements, they put their building up, and now building B wants to come in, and all of a sudden, there is all this infrastructure that's gonna be required. Is the impact fee the same for building B as it was for building A, or does building B have to pay a more impact fee?
Impact fees are directly related to your calculated ERCs,
To your what?
to your ERCs. So one ERC, if you look in the code, one ERC is about, I can't remember the number, $1,700-ish per ERC for sewer and
Is it 350?
ERC, can you spell out ERC?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I need some
ERC
definition.
stands for,
equivalent residential connections. They're also known as ERUs, units. So what we're saying is, one ERC is like the equivalent of a single family home.
Right,
So for instance, if you have an 800 unit condo building, well, it's 0.805 is the equivalent. So it'd be 800 times 0.805, then you multiply that by the fees, and that would give the impact fee.
So it really doesn't change, it's the same. It's just it's a size, it's just size.
Yeah, it's purely based on square footage of the type, the use, or some are each and some are based on square foot. So for instance, if you had a restaurant, it's per 1,000 square feet, and I think it's like 2 point something or somewhere around there.
But you
Something
can,
like that.
you can build
Somehow
like,
that doesn't seem right.
well, it depends. You could build a warehouse with one restroom and toilet, and it's 20,000 square feet. That has one restroom, it's one ERC, but takes so much land, right? So it doesn't, it's not for land, it's impact for your water and sewer. If you have 300 hotel room, 300 impact, right? 300 hotel
Toilets and faucets,
and
right,
sinks.
yeah.
So you're paying 300 times $1,700. If I'm paying huge warehouse or the single home, I have a one toilet or one, then I'm paying one, which is $1,700.
What is our current impact fee? Do we know that number per ERC?
If you give me about 2 minutes, I can tell you. I don't have it memorized, but I can give you the exact number.
it's kind of a grey area. It's because everybody pays the same impact fees. But
Yeah.
if you have a developer and their impact on the immediately adjoining pipe, or maybe even pump station, is quite severe, and the city says we have a plan to improve that in 2030, you might find a developer that says, well, I'll expedite that, because they don't want problems on their doorstep.
Right.
It's sort of a grey area, because they do pay the impact fees, so.
So I got the fees for you. So one ERC of water is $1,977, and then one ERC of sanitary sewer is $1,888.
So it's a couple
So it's
$1,000.
3,500 for both, right? Because you can't just have a water sewer.
Yeah, well, close to 4,000.
Also, what is important that the ERCs are going with the property. So let's say you can buy a property, old hotel, 10-story, and has already capacity, and you wanna demolish or you wanna build the residential homes 20-story, you're paying only the difference.
The extra.
Correct. So
Yeah.
they kind of tie to the property. So, interesting question with this. Do you guys have a budget? What is it currently in the city with the impact fees?
Like an account?
Yes,
Yeah, there is. I don't know what's in there though.
And we have that for the next meeting?
we, at one time.
There is a balance, yeah,
At one time, Omar, we used to receive that,
yeah,
remember?
I
yeah.
remember that, even my
We
It
can,
showed you the balance in the two.
the balance on the
Yeah, the
impacted fees
water
account,
and the wastewater.
yeah.
I will add, so if the developer decides to build infrastructure, they're entitled a refund up to their capital expansion amount, including design fees.
So they get compensated if they decide to build.
Well, but not above what they paid in.
No,
Right.
no. James?
Okay, I'm not trying to complicate anything here, but Dr. Gassman's still on the call. Is there any stormwater review that goes on when is that part of anything that you do that,
No, no, I don't.
No, you don't look at that.
The only time there is an interaction with stormwater if some utilities are being upgraded, if that it will interfere with the stormwater. We gotta make sure that, they're not digging in and we're hitting stormwater infrastructure. But there is no study for that, just coordination.
Well,
Okay.
I thought that the city someone checked, that on site, whatever was being provided on site
Yes.
was capable of handling, it was like an inch an hour, or not, maybe 3 inches over 20, I forget, there was one standard that was increased. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, that's at DSD.
That's a DSD.
That's not here at Public
That's-
Works.
yeah.
But yes, it's done as part of the permitting process.
But Igor doesn't do that?
No,
No,
No, he only does the water and sewer.
just a capacity for water and sewer.
So who to James to answer that question, right? To James's point, who's checking that a new site, it's 90% green area at the moment, it's
That's-
gonna become
that's-
DSD engineering.
90% concrete.
That's
Who's
DSD.
checking that what they're putting, in the ground within their site
Yeah,
is adequate?
DSD engineering.
Well, he is DSD.
No, he's Public Works engineering.
But-
Just happens to sit at DSD.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, DSD engineering versus public works.
right.
Yes.
So
Right.
DSD
It's
engineering
complicated.
looks at even very small stuff like a single family home. They look at driveways.
Sidewalks.
They look at the on-site stuff. Public Works engineering looks in the right of way.
So who's the DSD engineer?
Well, the city engineer is Benjamin Streppel, and then the land development manager is Orlando Aram. So, but those are DSD positions.
So,
So Peter, you're looking at the difference between how much on-site retention you have to do versus what potential stormwater impact you have
Yes.
into the public right of way.
yes,
And for the most part, the city doesn't require the broader currency type calculation on the broader infrastructure. It mainly requires the on-site retention.
yeah, I just thought everything, what Igor is doing and now the DSD engineer, that was all one and the same, but
There's only so much Igor to go around.
I will add, we're checking, to meet our code, but then also needs to go to Broward County to receive a surface water license. So they're also checking as well.
But
Okay.
I'm sure Igor could do it, and then it would free up somebody
Yeah,
else,
or
right?
you could.
Oh, Igor has plenty.
Oh, yeah.
I have no questions. Thank you. So, can you explain me a little bit the process? So, when you're getting your availability letter, you're saying to the developer, yes, we available, we can give you requested water, we can give you requested sewer, considering there's no problems. Obviously, how are you doing that? You're putting him on a list and you holding, that availability until he pays, right? Or, but that's, he may never pay, he may say, you know what, we're not gonna build those townhomes, so we're not gonna build the hotel, you may never pay, and what is the actual process? Are you giving a time frame for those availability, a deadline? Excuse me, Igor.
No, I just get over the cold. Yes, there is, we give them, once we give them the letter, we put it on the list of our flows. We have a big list of,
Spreadsheet, yes.
Spreadsheet of the flows, and then once they get a final DRC sign off, that flow is considered committed.
Correct.
So we put it on a different list of committed flows. So now it enters in the real calculations for all the capacities as because before the flow is committed, it's kind of halfway there.
Yes, and that's why I'm asking this question, so at which point, so when I'm new developer, and I'm telling you I wanna build downtown 500 rooms hotel.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna take 2 million gallons of water, 2 million gallons, big things, so versus which list, and I'm applying I'm requesting availability letter.
Yeah.
Are you looking at the spreadsheet with the availability letters? Or are you looking versus the spreadsheet that they already committed and paid?
You pay before you get the letter.
So I have to pay before.
You have to pay to get the letter.
Okay,
You're paying for the analysis, you're not paying
Analysis,
finance
yes.
fee.
okay, you pay for the analysis.
Right.
Yes.
And your analysis is again versus availability request and not committed, or versus the committed
Then-
one?
Yes. Then once you get the final DRC sign off, the flow becomes committed. The letter is good for a year, so you have a year to get a final DRC sign off.
Yeah, and that
yeah.
was something.
And then that flow migrates to a committed list.
Okay,
But the
so
committed list doesn't last forever, right? If you don't build, start.
Yeah, and then
development,
yes, and then you have to go through the permitting process and get your building permit, and it's,
But it's not, the committed flow doesn't sit there for 10, 15, 20 years, does it?
no, it doesn't, but,
So those,
exactly, it's only give you 1 year, right?
well, it's 1 year till your letter expires, but that's to get DRC approval. The city code says, just like all your other entitlements, as soon as you get DRC approval, those are reserved to capacities, that's in the code. Now, when they get their, I can't remember the name of it, but basically as part of their final DRC, there's the letter, I can't remember what it's called right now. There's essentially an expiration date on there that says if you don't get a building permit by this date, you lose everything.
Okay,
Now, there are so many ways to get extensions, things can get extended for years, essentially. But if that happens to expire, then their commitment, they lose all their entitlements and they'd have to start all over again. But that's essentially how the process works. It is challenging because you can have a lot of things holding capacity, even they may never get built.
okay.
And we can't remove them until that is no longer an entitlement to be held because based on the code and probably some Florida administrative code as well.
Let me just follow that one, and this is the same question.
Yeah.
Thank you. So that's why I asked this question, because, I mean, the capacity are great, but they can be as good as bad, right? Because you may have a developers that they ask you for a lot of stuff, I'm gonna build a hotel, I'm gonna build this, and then you're stopping all your developments because somebody has a dream and never committed, right? So I don't think that's happening in this city, but you wanna have also developers making, new.
progress.
Correct. But I'm glad that there's a deadline. You've gotta be committed to that in 1 year, that's very good. But also question is, when I'm coming, you running your reports versus all those dreamers or versus the actual committed, the availability letters that you gave with that 1 year deadline?
No. If you don't have reservations, meaning you didn't get DRC approval,
Okay.
it is not considered reserved. So there could be 30 more in there in the queue that we know about, but until you get DRC approval, there's basically like a checkbox on the sheet, and the ones that do not have DRC approval, that flow gets removed from the
Okay.
calculation.
Very good.
Yeah.
So we're not treating them seriously? Perfect, that's what I wanted. Thank you.
Yeah, there is,
Roosevelt?
I was answering.
I have another question, okay. Thank you. Another my question is with the wastewater treatment plant. Obviously, you do have a regional facility. How are you guys communicating with Wilton Matters? The flow is coming to our facility, they may be giving their own DRCs, right, for the approvals for the developers. That doesn't go through our city, I believe. Are they requesting availability letters through you because it's going to your sewer? And in some point, how you guys fractioning, how much flow we're gonna be giving and capacity to the Wilton Myers, how much to Oakland Park, how much Fort Lauderdale do we wanna have it all, I mean, it's a very interesting, conversation, how you
And this question
managing
has
that?
come up before.
Okay.
The same question about how the city finds out what the other cities that we supply and treat water from.
Yes, because you may have built all the hotels in the Wilton Matters, and then we gonna be sitting in Fort Lauderdale, like, what, we can't build anything here, we gave everything to Oakland Park, Wilton Matters, and, other neighboring cities, so I would like to know, thank you.
every city that we take the wastewater from or supply water, they have a quota, they have a certain number. I don't remember off the top of my head now, but
Okay, so they
they
have
given
already
a certain,
limits how much they can take.
certain,
Yeah.
So their development might be hindered if they are at that level of, we can't send any more to Fort Lauderdale, so we can't develop anymore.
They
Is
have
that
a ceiling.
a ceiling, yeah.
We have signed agreements with what, the large users, essentially, we're the large users group.
Yes, with
And
the ledge user.
On a yearly basis, because they did, this is my understanding how it came about, there was population projections, and that's how they came up with what their allocated capacity was. So every month, because we bill them, we can see what the flows have been to our city, and then we can compare that to what their contractual amount is. So they have not only a monthly maximum, but they also have their average, 3-year average daily flow. Average flow. That's the way the contract's written.
Yeah, because that's your permit, it's written.
Roosevelt?
Yeah,
In addition to that, there's a requirement within, their large user agreement related to inflow and infiltration. And if they are starting to see that they are butting up against the capacity requirement or maxima, which is starting to hinder their own development, we have seen the cities increase their own efforts related to I&I within their own systems in order to be able to increase their own capacity to be able to continue development.
To
That's good.
add on to Dr. Gassman's point, there's language written in there that essentially gives a surcharge. So if we see these massive peak hourly flows that are like 150% greater than the base flow, which would be indicate that there's an I&I issue, they receive a 25% surcharge on the bill. And then,
Especially like in this rain.
right, and then on top of that, there's another surcharge comparing two more numbers I can't remember, but it's similar. It's to detect I&I on their end, and so they can control their stuff.
Okay, it's like a penalty. Okay, very good.
Roosevelt?
when we talk about capacity in other cities, are we talking, used capacity, unused capacity, or the total capacity?
So each city, each of the largest users has an allocated amount
Of the total?
of the plants of GTL.
Okay.
So GTL right now, Igor I'm sure knows more than me, it's what, 61.58 or 38?
Yeah, that's
Something like
correct,
that.
yes.
So that's the 3-month average flow. So each of these large users have, and they're not large amounts, I mean, anywhere from like 2.9 MGD to like 0.3 or something like that, like Davy's really low. But that's already allocated and subtracted from the plant because we have to hold that capacity because it's contractual.
Okay, and then when there's huge building going on here in Oakland Park and Wilton Manors, the unused portion of that capacity, is it on the same, what you were saying?
That unused is reserved on our end, so we have to see it as it coming in. Because again, we have to hold that capacity, so it's reserved already. It gets a little confusing though, because let's take Oakland for instance, they also send some of their stuff to Broward County. So you may see something large getting built there, that it's not necessarily come to the city, it could be going to Broward County. So and I can't tell how their stuff's interconnected, I just know they go to both, to the city and they go to Broward County. And I'm not sure how all the other cities, but I do know Oakland can go to both.
Thank you.
But to be clear, nobody can build like in the Oakland Park if they would have to discharge sewer here without your availability letter, right?
No, that's not true.
It's not true? Okay.
No, so they need to be keeping track of their own stuff. The only thing that they have to do based on the contracts, or if their development's over 100,000 gallons per day, then they have to receive a letter from us.
Yeah, there's a certain ceiling,
Over
if it's over 100,000, then they come to us.
Okay, so when it's,
So we don't see small
a big
stuff.
development,
Yeah.
even if they have a reserved capacity within their own numbers, they still need a confirmation from you, you take that.
Yes, and this has definitely come up recently because we've had denials. Because some folks already reached their limit.
Interesting. I have one more question. Does anybody else have questions? We're running short on time.
Yes.
Marla?
Of course. Thank you. So, going from the sewer to water, with your new water treatment plant, how are you treating this new treatment plant? How that's gonna change the capacity in the city? Are we addition the capacity, or are we equal because we're taking we're keeping the fly ash, and how are you gonna, how it's treated capacity with the new plant?
Actually,
I'm not sure, we permitted an increase in capacity? I mean, right now, I think we can draw either 55-ish million gallons per day from the well
55-ish,
field,
yeah.
from the Biscayne Aquifer. And we're nowhere near that number, we're like in the 30s.
Yeah, so I can answer that. The capacity of the new plant is about 50 million gallons a day, right? And we had a permit to withdraw X amount of water. The old plant capacity was 70 million gallons a day. So it was a little larger, which it was way oversized. So this new plant, we still will draw the same, we can still draw 50 million. We only had a permit for like 51 point something.
55, somewhere around there.
55. But
Yeah, that's pretty.
yeah, so the capacity of the plant really hasn't increased.
Okay, so it's just
Yeah.
changing the,
Let me get a question from James.
Just one question about rates. You talked about penalties if they exceed, but in general though, isn't there the water rate, like Wilton Manors pays more for their water than like a normal, like the regular Fort Lauderdale resident? Cause there's a rate increase. And I'm asking that because I thought I heard that at Tallahassee, they were gonna pass a law that said cities can't be charged additional money.
That didn't pass.
Pardon?
That didn't pass.
It didn't pass, okay, alright.
But that was the case, I'm not sure if it's currently the case, it was the case in the past where the city was taking money out of the water sewer fund as what was termed a return on investment. And effectively, the people that were signed up to our agreement were paying, extra, if you like, because they were contributing to the money that was being taken from the water sewer fund. But that's gone away now.
I see.
So I'm not sure now whether there's any differential between what our the cities that we serve pay and our customers. I don't know the answer to that.
Sounds like there is, I mean, they still pay more.
They pay
Well,
more.
my understanding is at least the rate they pay, I don't know what they charge their citizens, but we all pay the same water sewer rate. I mean, even to ourselves. Now, they may have to charge more because they're getting it through us at the other municipalities, I'm not sure.
Yeah, but
Yes,
the
well,
water is more
that is the
expensive than
question.
the one that Fort Lauderdale residents buy. They have a markup.
they have a surcharge. But it's a good point because that 25% surcharge, that it's every year, it's introduced in Tallahassee, they're trying to get away with this, but this year again, they did not pass. So the municipality can charge 25% on the top of the water sewer rates only if they serve the distribution system in another city. So in this case, Wilton Manors owns all distribution system, right? Like you guys don't have a distribution system in the Wilton Manors.
No, we just supply them water.
Correct. That's why the Wilton Manors, they have a bulk meter, they have an agreement and they selling water to the master meter to the Wilton Manors. Whatever Wilton Manors is charging customers, it's nothing to say with the city.
Okay.
So we cannot charge 25% on a city unless we have an actual physical pipe over there and you in another municipality. We have the same rates in our municipal boundaries and we can charge 25% extra if we go beyond that boundary. But we gotta have a pipe over there. If the pipe, we don't own it and like Wilton Manors or maybe Open Park owns their own pipes, we can't have that surcharge. So it only applies when you have actual infrastructure because you can
So
have
there's
to
no,
go,
so we don't charge them more?
looks like not,
Well,
they have their own rates.
That's what their contract says, now I don't know. Remember, that's the contract of what the city will, let's just say Will Manors, right? Would have to pay when we send them the water bill, there'd be a surcharge on it. Now, that's what's in their written contract that's signed by them. I have no idea about this Tallahassee thing, so.
That's
That
not
may
the
need to be
surcharge that is allowed by the
I see.
state,
I
you know,
see.
that may be different surcharge.
So it's like a private contract between two cities versus what the state was saying, okay, got it.
So we have to wrap this up in
Yeah.
5 minutes.
So
So I've
stay
got time
quiet.
for one more question.
So interesting.
Good, thank you.
I have one question. The pump stations, what criteria do you use for determining that the pump station is going beyond capacity?
We use the criteria of the run time shouldn't exceed 10 hours a day.
Okay.
If it exceeds 10 hours a day, it's over capacity.
Okay. All right, so thank you very much to everybody that contributed to that. It's a very complicated subject. So,
Learned a lot.
Me too,
now,
trust
before
me.
we put all the name things, right, anybody else wanted to say, I didn't explicitly address public comments. Anybody from the public want to say anything?
No
If not, we are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Let's go to Semina Casino, Chair.
Oh,
You'll be in the casino.